All right, so I see a lot of questions from people who are brand new to picking, and maybe they've raked a lock open, or they've tried to single pin pick it and they've gotten it open, but they don't really know what they're doing. And they ask, what are some things that they can do to get better at figuring out what pin they're on, or just getting better at understanding kind of like what's happening inside the lock. So these are a couple things that I used to do, and I still do sometimes, just to kind of better feel for what's inside a lock and what's happening. So I've got, this is a Master 131D, I think. It's a really simple lock. It's 4 pins. There's no security pins in it. This was the first real lock I ever opened. So some things you can do to kind of get better at understanding what's going on in a lock is, number one, let's say you didn't know anything about this lock, you just picked it up, and you want to know, number one, how many pins are in it. So what I would do is, you can take really anything, but I'm just going to use a tension wrench. And you can literally stick it in the lock and push all the pins all the way up to the top. And then you pull it out and you listen for the number of clicks, and that's going to tell you how many pins are inside. So let's see if we can hear this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so do that one more time. I think it was on the wording. There we go. Okay, so hopefully you heard 4 clicks there. So that's literally, when the end of this wrench got past the pin, it just dropped down. So if you hear 4 clicks, that means there's 4 pins, typically. Sometimes you'll hear some other stuff going on in the lock, but if you do that a couple of times, it should give you a feel for how many pins are inside a lock. The other thing is, people say, I'm not really sure where I am in a lock. So one thing that I used to do a lot of is just take your tool. I've got a hook here, and I would literally just put it in, no tension, and just kind of feel underneath, where you are. So when this dips down, I'm going under a pin, and then it will go back up. So hopefully you'll be able to see this. So I'm going down. Okay, so right there, I just slipped under a pin, and now I'm between pins. And I can feel this bumping into the next pin. So then I'm going to slip down again and go up. And slip down again and go up. And then slip down again. And now I don't feel anything when I push it in. So that's it. That's the last pin. So I'm just running my hook across the bottom of the pins just so I can feel. And that'll help you kind of count where you are. So if you ever are trying to figure out what pin you're on, literally just pull this out, and then just count 1, 2, 3, 4. You can go from the back too. Sometimes because this is hooked this way, you won't get as much good feedback as you pull it across the pins. But sometimes you can, and I sometimes go from the back too. So you can see it's doing something similar, right? As I go around the pins, I go down and then back up. Okay. So those are just 2 real easy exercises. And then one more thing is, again, with no tension, just get in here and just push up on the pins a little bit. I oftentimes lever against the bottom of the keyway, but you can use your finger too and just push it up. So, get on a pin and push it up and just feel, what it feels like. You should get a little bit of springiness as the spring pushes the pin back down. You shouldn't really feel any resistance, or very little resistance, but it should be easy to do. If you get in here and you're pushing and nothing's going, you're probably on the warding at that point, right? You're not pushing a pin. So you're pushing against the solid brass here, and you want to avoid that as much as possible because you'll bend your picks and you're not really doing anything constructive. So once you get a feel for kind of how the pins feel when there's no resistance, so the next step is you're going to put your tension tool in. You're going to put a little bit of tension on this. And then you're going to check the pins again. And if you're putting the right amount of tension, they all but one should feel about the same as they did with no tension. They should have a little bit of springiness to them. They shouldn't feel like they're binding. there should only be one binder, maybe two. And so once you feel the binder, so this one's not moving, that's the pin I'm going to want to push up. And you're going to want to lift it until you get a click or some core rotation or something to tell you that it did something in there, right? And that's going to be your indication. So right there, I got a little click. That's going to be your indication that you want to move on to another pin, right? So now I'm going to check maybe some of the other pins in here. And again, just feel if any of them are binding. And whichever one is binding is the one that I'm going to want to push up on. And if none of them are binding, you know, you may have overset this first pin, you may have underset the first pin. Don't feel bad in the beginning, just, you know, let your tension off, try again, and just kind of see what happens. So, okay, there was another little click. That one's not really binding. This one feels pretty solid. I'm gonna push that one up. Okay, there we go. So that's it. Just a couple, you know, really easy exercises for counting pins, trying to feel where you are in the lock, and then also getting a feel for, you know, how the pins feel when they're not set. So those are some, again, real easy things that as a beginner you can do on a simple lock, just to get used to it, and that'll really help you, you know, develop a feel for what's going on, and that'll help you when you get onto harder locks. Thanks for watching.